Here we go. Hi, everyone. Shayna J here from One Heart Mission. And today I have the distinct and pleasure and honor to talk with a very dear, sweet old friend of mine from the 90s, Dr. Tom Garcia, who used to be and is retired from the chiropractic world, which I'm sure taught you a lot and brought you into the transition of being the sacred ritual ceremonialist that you are today. And I am so grateful that we're here to talk. Wow.
Thank you so much. It's really a
Wow.
pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, let's tell, the people about what was there a transition for you to retire from chiropractic to wow, sacred circles and
Yeah. Yeah. And it took time. It took some time. I don't know if I ever mentioned to you that I'm been a long time student of A Course in Miracles.
yes, and so am I.
Yeah. So of
Yeah,
course,
right.
and and that's woven throughout. It's like this shamanic, A Course in Miracles, medicine, earth, all sort of like blended. And chiropractic was in there too. So I was a chiropractor for 30 years.
Yeah.
And those last 10, 12 years or so, I was like, I'm ready to segue out. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. But over the course of that time, it finally became like it has to happen. And I didn't, my practice wasn't up for sale, but, I didn't have any, like, I wasn't prepared to sell my practice or move on. And this chiropractor came in and she'd come to town because she was there to start a practice with somebody else, and that whole deal fell through. And she's in my office, and I'm like, "Well, I think that's because you're supposed to be here." She said, "Is your practice for sale?" And I'm like, "It is now."
It is now. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And so we talked, and we were both in tears, and I'm just like, "I gotta go. I have
Oh,
to go. It's time." And it worked out. It just like spirit lined it up, and boom, I was out. But it wasn't like uh, and now I'm sitting on a bundle of money and a pile of money and it's all gravy, it's like now it was time to get to work.
yeah.
So I've been doing my work, like you said, the ceremonial aspect that was a long time in its own evolution. And
Yeah.
now it's just like I'm like off the leash, if you will.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and just to say where that came from is uh, it's been 12 years now. A really dear friend of mine came to live with us, and he spent the last 18 months of his life in our home. And
Wow.
Karen and I took care of him right to the end. I closed my practice for about a year and brought it home. I was seeing people at home, and when he passed, something happened to me. I just went like,
Wow.
I went crazy. I just was like crazed. I started going to the woods early in the morning before sunrise. In the evening at sunset, I'd stay out all night, and I would make little fires and a place to kneel, and I would pray. I would journal and pray. And I
Wow.
didn't know what was really happening to me. Neither did Karen, my wife, and she was so supportive. But I did have very. I was very intentional. I was like really focused, and I wanted the answers to three questions: Who am I? Why am I here? And who sent me?
Wow.
Like just like that. And I'm like, I'm not going home until I have those questions answered. And they're still being answered. It's like
Of course,
never.
because it's an evolution.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally. And
Oh,
it's true for all of us. I mean, as I tell my story, it's like we all have those moments or some series of moments or a cataclysmic event that changes the course of our lives. And all we can do is go with it. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know but I'm just going. And that's
right.
kind of how it's been.
Yeah, that's how it was for me as well.
I got it.
And
Yeah.
and during, it's funny, as I was healing and moving into the huge change that my life brought me after I fell off the cliff
Mm.
was I started meeting other people who also had huge traumatic events in their lives and they didn't get it.
Oh,
They didn't realize the gift. of the body breaking down or the consciousness breaking down or whatever it was that was there for them, that there was a smoother road if they just turned left a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That
I
is so
want,
powerful. What
what,
you're saying. It's so powerful what you're saying.
yeah,
And because that's one of the things that I help people with, that I work with. It's like, I just remind them, if you forgive my French, I say, you'll get a bitch slap from the universe, like, and you're like, whoa,
right.
okay, that was that was a wake up call because you missed a couple earlier, and so you fall off a cliff, and then you're like, okay, you have my attention now.
Yeah, of course, it wasn't an actual mental thought, but it was a complete surrender into the moment. That's why a lot of my work is focused now around mastering the moment and bringing in teachings that will support that. And
Yeah,
I'm wondering if you and I'm wondering how many other people might have this connection, that the Course in Miracles in our background taught us how to meditate, taught us how to watch the mind, taught us how to pray intentionally, the things that you mentioned.
mhm,
And so when something like that happens, we go, wait a second, I prayed for this.
yeah,
And here it is. I may not like it, but
mhm,
I'll accept what it is and get whatever I can out of it.
yeah, yes. It's part of our waking up, and it's not even, well, it's not a bad thing. It's just sometimes we need we need quite a shake to
Yeah.
snap us out of the
Yeah.
the
Conditioning.
stupor, the conditioning, right?
It is a stupor of conditioning.
Yeah. And you know what? I go to sleep. I fall asleep with the wheel all the time. It's like an ongoing. It's part of the discipline to just stay awake and pay attention
Yes.
and to listen. To
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Mm.
So what do you see happening in your world as you're transitioning to this new, well, 2 years to me, that's new. I've been
Mhm.
doing this like 24 years. Because when I fell, it was 1997. It was the year after I
Oh,
saw you. Didn't you guys get married in the 96?
96.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So that I was, whoops, I was in the transition when I saw you guys last at your wedding. And I could tell you every single event that happened led up to my fall. And all of it was about surrendering to the moment of the day, being in the unknown, living in the present. And all of these words I heard were concepts. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yes.
The mind cannot figure it out.
Right.
But when you are willing and somehow you have a willingness to accept, okay, this is what's happening in this moment,
Yeah.
then how can I interact with it so there's goodness here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's so true. The course it's been a companion. It's like a guide for living.
it is.
So, and you're right. I mean, the mind's capacity, my mind's capacity is just, the course says something about not being your own teacher, like to give that up, because that's not the teacher you want to follow.
Right. That's a
So,
good point.
yeah. And so that awakening piece, that whatever it takes, and then the course is there, all of a sudden it's richer and deeper in meaning, because now I've I'm on the path that it suggests, in a manner of speaking. It's deeper and richer in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So is this something that you talk about with when you're coaching people?
More and more. I had someone pointed out to me, that someone I work with who is a course teacher, she said, you didn't mention the course. And I was like, oh, I didn't, did I? It's almost like I avoid it. Like I don't
Oh,
want to
really?
go there. But then I'm like, why not? And so I started going there, and I find out how many people are either they've they are currently a student of the course. They've been there, or at least they have the book. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I have the book. And well, you know, place to start. I have the book. I say, well, then, you know what? Read it. Read the first 4 chapters.
Or
You know,
read the first paragraph
yes, the
and
first,
see if
yeah.
you can get that.
There's a, I'll just say this. There's the original typewritten manuscript that was, you know, that was Helen scribed. She was
Uh-huh.
the scribe. And on that first page, first paragraph, it says, help me to perform whatever miracles you want of me today.
Oh,
And also remember to ask.
yeah.
So that's been my battle cry this year, both of those phrases, but
Nice.
especially remember to ask for guidance before you make any
Absolutely.
decisions.
Teach me. But what I got when I fell was teach me, show me, and help me learn.
Yes. So the
And
course says, listen, learn, do. Listen,
exactly.
learn, do, just like that.
And that's how I learned how the connection of consciousness is universal, personal, and physical.
Yeah.
And that's why my body healed in 4 weeks, because I wasn't in the way mentally.
Yes.
I was just 22 broken bones healed in 4 weeks. And I
Oh,
was up doing yoga and, and it's still evolving.
yeah.
This whole thing that I'm doing now is brand new. I would have never thought to do this. I had no plan to do it. I had an opportunity last summer to take a few months off. And at the end of the year, I was like, why are you telling me this? Interview people on mastering the moment. I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
what is that? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I noticed how I felt when I heard that. And I felt so happy. I
Yes.
was like, well, oh, I'm so sorry. I've got a little interruption here. Let me clear it. Thank you. And when I felt happy, I went, oh, wait, that's the key. When you feel happy, just follow it. And again, it's about the practice of being in the moment.
Yeah.
Because if you're not in the moment, you can make happiness be all kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, how can I keep it?
Yeah.
How can I, make it more, better, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what the mind does with all those concepts. But at the same time, if you can just relax and let it be the moment that is blessing you, for you don't have to know what.
That's, you know, I was just talking with someone about this morning. That's a high level, it's a it's a very evolved skill set to be able to listen. I don't know if it's a set, but to listen, the capacity to listen and really tune in takes some practice.
It does.
And then to follow the guidance. It took me a long time. I mean, you know, I've been out of practice for 2 years, but I've been in this realm really solidly for 12. You know, just really deeply, deeply working. And
Yeah.
you know, I work at the fire. I work alone, and the message I was getting was, you need to bring other people to the fire. These messages aren't just for you.
Right?
And then it was bring the fire to the people, not
Wow.
necessarily a fire, but the metaphor of the fire, what the fire brings, the wisdom. It's wisdom.
Nice.
And so, you know, the last couple of years I've just been, like I said, deeply on the path. And the course has been, like I said, a companion to help flesh out the ideas and the wisdom, because it's full of, you know, pearls,
Right.
just like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you're in the moment, do you find that your ability, like the years of practice have brought you to an ability to capture what you're getting and see that that gift really is for you to be your own unique self at this moment in time, and then
Yeah.
watch the evolution of you're watching your own evolution happen.
Exactly. That's very true. And and it's always great to have witnesses around.
Yes.
People that knew you when, or people that, like in the community I live, they knew how I was, years ago, and they've seen this change over the last dozen years.
Yeah.
And I say that for me, but also for all of us, that as we're moving through our changes, to have people close to us who can witness us, and then for us to witness them.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's so common, you
I'm
know.
hoping that our whole last year has brought us back. Oh, I
Yes.
don't like to use the word back, but into
Yeah.
a space where it becomes more common.
Yes. And I think that's one of the things for me in my work with people, is to be able to look them in the eye and just let them know, to tell them, I see you, I see you, or just to let them see me seeing them, you know,
Uh,
catch me for a moment or an extended period of time, and then they know they've been seen, and there's nothing like being seen.
there's nothing like it. It's so funny that you said that. I just told my friend that this morning.
Mm,
I don't think I've ever said that to anyone. And
yeah.
we were talking, and I said, I just want you to know that I see you, seeing that I see you.
Let me tell you this. One of the things my guide said to me in the woods was, just sit knee to knee with people and let them see my love in your eyes.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, could I do that? I mean, can I do? I knew I could do that, but it was like, oh my gosh, what that means, what that could be.
right.
Yeah.
It's a paradigm shift in your own mind
Yes.
to be able to accept what you're hearing.
Mhm.
I had the same experience when after I fell, and I had been meditating for like a year. I don't know how my life happened, because I just was, all I know is that I meditated. And then one day I heard, now you teach.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, no, 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 I don't do that. No, because teacher in my concept was the hand slapper, and you didn't do it right, and you're not good enough, and
Yeah.
you're never going to make an A grade, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I said, and then once I got over that, then I said, this is way I talk to God. So, all right, if you show me how to teach your way, then I will do that. But I'm not doing that thing, that concept.
Yeah.
No papers, no grades,
Yeah.
no thesis, nothing like that, no homework. I want to connect. And you know what I saw? The very next thing I saw was my heart, literally it looked like a megaphone. And I was like, oh, I got it. Okay. Just teach your,
Yeah.
it's like, just show up.
Yeah.
Show up and teach from your heart. And that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah. Well, it didn't come naturally or easy to me either. I mean, it was one thing to be in practice and teach people about health or talk to them about health, but I'd always go to that other place, that deeper place, and not everyone had a listening for that.
Right.
So it was my rule to not, if people weren't asking for it, I wasn't going to say. But
Yeah.
if I could hear an asking, then I had a lot to say. And that's actually how my guides have worked with me. I said, what? There was a point. It's kind of a dumb question, but it's like, why me? Like, why are you telling me these things?
Right.
And they said, because you asked and we answer, and that's how it works.
That's how it
And
works.
yeah, and when we find even one who will listen, we have a lot to say. And I'm
Boy,
like,
that's so true.
yeah,
That is so true.
yeah,
I got a line out of a book, and I don't even know which book it was, but this is the line. It said, take one step toward God, and God will take 1,000 steps towards you.
yeah.
And that's what you're saying.
A little willingness is how the course talks about it. Just
Yeah.
a little willingness. And what I understood was, any more than that, and the ego gets involved.
Yeah.
Any more than that, the ego's trying to, like, run the show or say what it knows, or add something. And it's like, no, just a little bit, and the Holy Spirit will take it the rest of the way.
That's right.
Like that.
That's right. That's right.
And in the realm of being present, and I'll just tell you this from from my perspective, this from my own practice of, I mean, everyone has their own, if you're a meditator, you have your own practice, right? Your own way of how you sit and the way you do your meditation. And so, I go to the woods and I make a fire and I lay out an altar and I prepare my place to kneel and I kneel. Because for me, that's the the proper posture. It's like the appropriate posture for what I'm addressing. And the fire is right in front of me. And sometimes it just takes some time to get my ego out of the way.
Oh,
And it could take, a half an hour, it could take several hours
yeah,
until finally I can get to that place where I feel really present and clear and the noise of my ego is kind of quieted down and fallen away.
yeah,
Now I can offer my prayers of substance, prayers that come from a deep, deep place.
yeah,
I have, I'm reaching back. I have, a little basket of tobacco and dried sage from our land, and I'll put it to the fire and offer my prayers and say gratitudes. And
right.
I'm kneeling there beside the fire now, and it's hot on the front, cold on the back, and I'm just dropped into this sacred space.
And that doesn't mean anything, does it? Once you get there, nothing else means anything.
No, it's the sweetest spot to
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
And I think it's something as we meditate, as we pray, as we do the things we do that take us sort of out of our minds and help us to really be in that place of just timelessness in a manner of speaking. It's that.
it's that. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it's like what they call the zone.
Yeah. Flow state, the zone, peak experience. There's lots of ways it's been described. I'm reading this book called Stealing Fire that's just about those, it picks on all the different realms of meditation, pharmacology, um, sports. It's just kind of delving into all these realms to find out there's this common thread that runs through all of it. That
Yes,
people are getting out of their minds and into that space of just, it's like total freedom, you know.
it is. That's the space for me in meditation.
Yeah,
And you're right. Sometimes it takes a little while to get there. And
yeah.
sometimes I tell God, okay, look, my mind is just way too busy today. I'm not going to deal with it. You deal with it.
See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow. you know that's funny because it's in a similar way. My guides will say to me, I call them my guides. I have people that talk about that they work with the ascended masters, and I'm like, I think they're the same people because the quality of information is very similar.
Yeah.
um, in my reluctance, in my hesitation, in my, who me, they say they're very patient. They say,
Mm.
um, that's okay. We have an eternity. They're looking at their watch. We have an eternity, but you don't. So
Right.
get busy.
Right.
I'm like, oh, thanks. Yeah. Okay.
That's a great way to say it. How true that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have an eternity and you don't.
We have multiple
So
lives.
what the heck are you resisting? What did you say? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
But we have multiple lives.
Oh,
I'm
right.
like, I don't know if I have multiple lives. All I'm pretty sure is I have this one, and sometimes I'm not so sure about this one.
That's right. I was going to ask you, how sure are you
I'm
about
not sure at all. And that's, I think that's the beauty of just being willing to surrender,
Yeah.
you know, and and I call it laying down the sword and dropping the shield,
Mm.
coming, like hands out, just
That's a beautiful metaphor for men, especially.
because we're all about, doing battle or protecting ourselves, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
just lay it down.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the best.
It is the best. Oh my
Gen-
gosh. I love it. I love what you're saying. It's
yeah,
so right in the moment.
yeah. And for people that are listening, like when you tell your story, I tell my story. When I'm at the fire with people, like I like to get people to the fire because then they're on the earth, they're under the open sky, they're at the fire. It's like 80% of my work is just done. Everybody, without exception, is the kind of the primal space of being around a fire, and it
Right.
it it gives access to something I might not have otherwise have access to.
Yeah.
And so just to be like that is the most surrendered state.
Yeah.
Be open and to be um, like, show me.
You're right about I'm going to pick up one part of what you said. The 80% of the work is done getting them at the fire.
Hmm.
Because what I hear in that is God will take over the rest.
Yes. And I think my experience is that there's a range, of course, but there's people that have a God problem. They've been conditioned in such a way it's like, mm, just resistance around it. Or, even people that are deeply spiritual, they talk about meditating. And I was talking to one lady who's a shamanic practitioner. I said, "Do you pray?" She said, "Well, I meditate." And I didn't say anything. And then she said, "They're different, aren't they?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I
Totally.
wasn't being a know-it-all. I'm just like, yeah, they're different. Prayer is a communication, an active communication between the created, you and I, with the creator.
Yeah.
We have that direct access. We're a consciousness with direct access to the intelligence that's given rise to life within us and everything.
Yeah. That's the wording that I got recently, source to resource.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I
That
love that.
that immediate
Hmm.
connection is source to the resource.
Yeah.
I
You know
feel
what I wanted to say too was when I was referring to being at the fire with people is, I might tell several stories. It's almost like to get the conversation going. I'll tell several stories about forgiveness or surrender or blessing, and then what I always remind people is I'm telling you this my story. I want you to hear your story because you have a story. Oftentimes when someone's telling me a story, this wheel starts automatically going in my own mind about my story as it relates to their story. So I
sure.
want people to hear that. So
Yeah,
it's not just some guy telling stories, but it's like I'm really saying, what's your story?
exactly. And having them speak it out. And then
Mhm.
the way I'm hearing you, you're offering them the reflection in that moment of hearing their own story out loud,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
makes a huge, profound difference for them if they're
Hmm.
really listening, and sometimes it just
Yeah.
helps bust open their own listening for what am I talking about? Where am I going? Those
Yeah.
profound questions that we were talking about.
Yeah. So that's another thing is I often will have people tell me their story so I can hear it, so they can hear it. And also to say their prayers out loud.
Yeah,
Say your prayer out loud.
yeah,
And you're like, I know it's easy to say it in here, but to say it out loud is a whole different quality. So I'm waiting. I just, if they don't say, I'm like, I'm waiting. Gently, kind of little smirk on my face, like, go ahead. And,
yeah.
they'll, it's so, and when, who can really do it is kids.
Yes,
You tell them, say your prayer, they're like, okay. And then they let it rip. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the best prayer I've ever heard.
they are amazing. They're so connected to what
They
they
are
do,
connected,
and they know.
especially when you give them permission. They
Yes,
know. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was working in a group with fathers and their sons, and one young man showed up whose dad wasn't with him, and we were going around, and each all the boys were checking in, and when it came to him, he just like the story that he had about what was going on in his home with his parents and kids in his school that had committed suicide, and he's got a girlfriend, and his friends are asking, have you kissed her yet? And he's like, I'm only 13, and he was in tears, and my dad's not here. And I stopped him and I said, look at me. because he was crying. And I said,
course.
your tears are welcome here.
Wow.
Please continue. And he went a little further. And then it was time, it naturally kind of came to a stop. It's like, okay. But by that time, he was like sitting more upright. Had pushed his hoodie back. And one of the other dads says, why don't you come over here and sit by us? And he had a tree stump he was sitting on. He like picked up the stump, brought it over and sat down. And then it was time to do a blessing. And he was right beside me. And I said, now remember, bless yourself first and then bless your world. He said, okay. And then he delivered this blessing. When he was done, I'm like, that was the best blessing. He just blessed everything.
Oh
It was
my.
so powerful to hear.
Oh my gosh, Tom, the work you're doing is just
Mhm.
so credible.
I know
So
it's needed.
credible and so needed.
People are hungry for it. People are hungry for a place. I mean, who doesn't want to like to be plucked out of the insanity of their lives and dropped into a sacred container where they can be listened and where they can communicate with in a way that maybe they've never communicated,
Yeah.
especially with that which created them.
Yes.
They have to be witnessed in that way and to be heard and to feel safe, just to feel safe, especially women. It's
Absolutely.
hard enough for men, but especially women and with men to be safe in a man's presence, to know that
Yeah.
safe here.
Yeah, it is. There's so much competition with the egos and how people have, created their own stories to to save themselves,
Yeah.
but it's really an excuse to not be connected or to be okay in somebody else's eyes. But what you're saying is you have created a space where people can see themselves in different eyes, not the eyes that listen through the competition,
Right.
the eyes that listen through the soul and the heart
Yeah.
in the
So
moment.
when we're together, especially if someone's new, I might just say, so why are you here? And it's be like, you mean, why am I here at the fire or why am I here? And I'm like, pick one,
Whichever one feels
pick
good.
one. And that's where we go. That's how we get in. Because
Oh,
we don't have a lot of time. Like
yeah,
we're at the fire only for a couple hours tops.
right.
Um, and that's at the fire. But if you're on a call with somebody, what, 90 minutes at the most before your attention starts to drop off.
Yeah,
So to get right to it like that, there's an urgency, but it's not a hurry. There's just a sense of urgency. And at the same time, it's okay, here we are. There's nowhere to go. There's no place else to go, nothing else to do. There's
yeah,
no hurry.
yeah,
We
absolutely.
have all the time we need right now.
Right now.
And, take a deep breath and just drop in. And we're connected.
Wow. So do you feel like people are challenged actually by being in the moment? That it's just difficult for them and so they're not going to do it, or
Yeah.
what are you
Well,
noticing about that?
I want to say, and I gathered this from the course, that sustained concentration is difficult. And being in the moment can be a challenge. Just to be present and to, to suspend the noise and distraction all around, just to be in the moment. That sometimes that can be really hard, even if you're home alone in your own space. And I think it's helpful to have ritual, some kind of a practice, simple practice, just to say, okay, I'm I'm going to practice being present right now. I'm just going to be present, you know,
Yeah. Oh,
even if
that's
we don't use those words, you know.
beautiful.
I get up real early in the morning. This is just my routine. I get up, wash my face, get my coffee, and it's kind of like this. If I can just get to my chair, and I get to my chair, and I crack the course, and I read a little bit, and then I'm like, and I can feel the presence
Yes.
of
Of
Holy
the present.
Spirit, the presence of all that is, just like,
Yeah.
And it's I want to stay there.
Yeah.
Just like when I go to the fire, especially if I'm by myself, I just don't want to go in. I don't want to come in. The fire could burn all, and sometimes I do stay out all night for that purpose. I don't have to go in. Doesn't matter the weather. Middle of winter, middle of spring, summer, I'll sleep out
Yeah.
just to have the experience of being free of electronic interference, microwave cell signals, electric grids that are in our homes. It's all disturbance to our own field. So to
Right.
just be out in nature. No, what do they call it? Earthing.
Earthing.
The
Yes.
natural thing in the world. Someone else told me just recently there's now a diagnosis called nature deficit disorder.
Oh my God.
I said, there must be a medication for this. Ask your doctor, you know, if I should go outside. Like,
And you're the doctor.
yeah, yeah, I'll write you a prescription.
That's right. Please write a
Yeah,
lot of them. Have it
yeah,
be your calling card.
yeah, a lifetime prescription. But that's our culture.
It
That's
is.
our
And
culture.
we've allowed ourselves to be ingrained in that
Yes,
rather than stay. We didn't even know it was happening.
right. So this is really important what we're saying here. We touched on this earlier. When I started on this path, I didn't know it was a path. I was just like going to the woods, making a fire, and praying. And I didn't even know how to pray. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like, oh, I've always prayed, and I'm going to pray out here. And I could feel something coming through me. I could feel like this. I just call it a ceremony. This ceremony wanted to come through me because that's how it looked. I'm making a fire and I had this altar and I'm using tobacco and cedar and sage and sweetgrass like they were given to me. And so what I'm getting to is I was adamant. I was almost like um, uh, I had some energy around it. Do not tell me what to do. Do not tell me how to do it. I didn't want to read any books. If someone else tried to say, well, this is how, in a sweat lodge or blah, blah, and I'm like, I don't,
No.
because I wanted my own undiluted, untainted experience of what it felt like for my spirit to come through me. And that's why I go to the woods. That's why I go outside and make a fire, because it's that one place where I can drop in and it's mine. It's like it's my time. You know what I mean? And when I do a ceremony, and I'm saying this, I want everyone to listen for when you do your thing, it's yours. Like your relationship with the creator is your relationship.
Yeah.
It's nobody else's business. No one has any right to interrogate you about it or question, like, well, do you believe this way? And if you don't, it's like, you know. So to say that, there's like, I want to know for myself. That's what I wanted. I wanted my own direct connection to feel that relationship without anybody else's opinion, interpretation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Authority. Like, mm, mm,
Absolutely.
mm. So, yeah,
And yeah, when you get in touch with that true calling, that's what I would say. You're feeling a true calling. And you don't, if you put your own paradigms on it, you're not, it's now not a true calling. It's a Tom calling. Now, Tom is a great guy, and Tom can bring through a great calling.
yeah,
But when God brings it through Tom, it's a whole different thing. And so what I would say is being curious. What the heck is going to happen? It's like,
yeah,
I want to watch that movie myself. You
yeah,
know, my heart and my third eye. I want to see that movie because I don't know what she's going to do, but she's
yeah.
going to do something.
So right along those lines, this is really good because in my work with people, I'm like, I don't want you to follow my way. I'm not asking you to. I'm nobody's guru. Find your way.
Right.
Know your way. Your way. Um, I, someone I was really close with, working side by side at the fire. They reached a point where I'm like, you got to go make your own fire. But will you help? I'm like, no, I'm not going to help you. You make your own damn fire. That's not, I said it that way, but I was serious and tongue in cheek, but it's like, no, you have to do your own, you have to let it come through you now. I have, I have people all over the world that make their own fire.
Oh, wow.
And like, not like millions. I wish it was millions
Yeah.
because that'd be that many people doing their own ceremony. But people send me photos of their fire saying, I made a fire, and it's their own fire. It's like, it's beautiful. However you make your
Wow.
fire,
Wow.
to say, find your own, you find your own way to communicate. And what I say about the fire, just because we're on the topic, is my fire connects to sacred fires all over the world.
Yes.
Sacred fires everywhere.
Yes.
And when we, you and I and others, when we take the time to consecrate a place and make it sacred, we don't have to travel halfway around the world to find sacred land or a sacred spot. It's right
Right.
where we are because of who we are and
Right.
because of who the Course says this, because they who having gone before us have blessed it with their innocence and their peace. It's right here where we are. We
Yeah.
make sacred where we are.
Yeah.
And then we can share from that place of knowledge, awareness, just claiming. And I call my work Reclaim the Sacred. It's like, take it back.
Yeah.
What's been taken from us or what we've given away, reclaim it. The
Re-
language, the practices, the way. And don't
Absolutely.
put your way on me. Thank you very much. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. The only way we can evolve as a species, okay, take away only way.
Okay.
In my view,
Good
one
catch.
of the best ways to evolve as a species is for everyone to do their part. Because when, let's
Yeah.
say somebody comes up with an idea, let's say it's a new business. You get a new business idea and then you tell a few people about it and they love it, but they want to play with you. How they play with you is the way that they can contribute to your idea. And your idea doesn't mean you are every part of it. The next person that comes in contributes another piece, and it goes from there to till the thing that you created with one little spark of an idea from source to resource gave you all these people that resonated with it. And the fruition of it is not one person, it's the evolution of the idea.
Yes.
And what a beautiful way for us to live. And I think that a lot of us are looking for that type of community. And you mentioned something about you're living in community before when we were talking
Hmm.
um, about how important that is. Well, because everybody has a piece that is in their perfection. But if everybody's trying to be like someone else, then they're not getting it.
Yeah.
They're not really contributing what's wanted, but they're in that place. And just showing up and hearing it gives them the permission to actually be their true self with it.
Yes.
If
I so
they
resonate
will.
with yeah, if they will.
If
Yes. I
they will.
resonate with what you're saying is because I say that too. I say it about myself. I'm just doing my part.
Me
We're
too.
all, and if we all just do our part, it's a lot. I mean,
It's
it
a
adds to the
lot.
whole.
And
Yes.
it would change the world.
Yes.
The world would not exist in the conditioning, the strength of the conditioning that we have now, if everybody did their own piece. It's just getting back, practicing the moment so that you get in touch with that energy you talked about, that thing
Yeah.
that is when you're in that perfection of that moment, your ego, however long it takes to let it settle down and the energy to come through you. And I actually think too, and have seen this witness, that the more, you're talking about the sacred fires around the world connecting. And for me, it's an energetic thing. My thoughts are not my own thoughts. They're the collective thoughts. And so when I have a conflict or a dilemma going on and I work out the solution that gives me peace, I know energetically I've affected the whole field of humanity that's
Right.
going through that same problem.
Yes.
And so thank you for presencing that, because that's where we start to see, my goodness, I really do make a difference. I don't
Yeah,
have to be a big name person. I just have to do my part.
right. Yes. And there's so much in what you just said. The world we live in, the world, it's just an insane place. It's crazy. It's a crazy place. You think there's panic and there's fear and it's always been that way. That's the world.
That's the world.
And to the extent that you and I and others wake up, become more present, and do our part and add to the whole in that way. And especially, I want to say too, those of us that are of a little bit older age, that are now elders. We're in our elderhood right now, and to be able to reach back and give something back to the kids in their 30s and 40s, that are trying to find their way,
Yeah,
to provide leadership. And I think of it as spiritual leadership, not like having a following, but
right.
just, again, doing my part to find the leadership within me to lead my own life
That's
in,
right.
in a aligned in a good way. And then I can give that to others. I can extend that. It's not foisting anything over on anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so humble too, the way you explain what you're doing. That's one of the things I like about
Oh, thank you.
the way you do what you do. It's just so clean.
Yeah. Well, it
It's
humbled me to do it.
right.
And
That's how I feel. I feel humbled just being in the presence of the presence.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
privilege. There's so many times I'm like, I'm so grateful and I feel so honored just to be able to have the awareness to do what I'm doing and then be able to share that with other people
absolutely.
to help them access what they already know. That's
And
wisdom that's their own.
to help them not forget it, but to bring that forward. Like, when you're talking about 30s and 40s, absolutely. I was in a program where I was an elder of youth, you know 20 year olds, and I got to mentor them. Oh, it was so much fun and so amazing, and what they wanted to do in the world was so exciting. But now that I'm a grandmother, 5 and 6 and 10 year olds have a lot going on.
Oh boy.
And I love being around my grandgirls, where we chat, and when the oldest was about 3 or 4, and I would pick her up from school, and I go, we go get yogurt or something, and we'd talk, and she'd go, "Bubby, let's sing to your teachers," because I had their picture, right here, and she says, "Who are they?" And I said, "Those are my teachers." And then I sing a mantra to them, and she learned it.
Oh my.
And she learned it by watching my mouth say the words. She was focused on my mouth saying the words, because it's in Sanskrit, right?
Mhm.
God bless
That's
her.
beautiful.
And so every time we got in the car, she would want to make her sacred presence known to my teachers, and she would sing the mantra with me.
Oh, beautiful. Now, speaking of Sanskrit, I had a dear friend of mine come to the fire who had spent a lot of time in India. And he sang, so we're at the fire together. He shared some Sanskrit prayers with me and he spoke them in Sanskrit. And then at one point he's like, I don't know if I need all this because I have deer antlers and my things and a bowl and sage and I looked at him and I'm like, I don't know if I need it all either, but I like it.
Makes me feel
So,
good.
yeah. So I said, whatever you do something. Whatever you do something.
Yes,
Create your own ceremony. It's yours. This is
that's
what I
right.
wanted to say too about that. Just to go back to that, is my what I do is self-generated. So if you let what you do be self-generated, it truly belongs to you. And
Yeah,
everything borrowed from everything anyway, you
right.
know. But it's not traditional. It's not like completely like it just took somebody else's whole deal and brought it over to me. So in that respect, no one has any say. You know what I mean? Like, this is mine. So to own it that way, like this is how I do what I do. This is
Right,
how I talk to God. This is my altar. This is my space.
right, right.
Carving out your own space in the planet,
Yeah,
giving
yeah,
yourself permission to be.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
who you are.
exactly. So, so beautiful. So one last question, maybe two, you never know. What do you feel are the blessings of living in the moment? What are the values? What do you feel about?
uh, I think the first thing is gratitude. Just to be present, to the just being grateful for everything,
Yeah,
all that I am, all that I'm becoming, all that I have, all my challenges, everything. I'm grateful for all of it. It's a gift.
nice.
And just to be, and then to be able to offer, like it's the blessing to me to be able to give my blessing. That was a new one for me. But
Oh,
that's what they told me at the fire. It's like you need to
wow,
bless your world and
wow,
bless yourself first, and then bless your world.
wow.
And so I close all my communications with blessings. I used to be just sincerely, or cordially.
Yeah, yeah.
Blessings.
That's
To be
beautiful.
able to give and receive blessing, express my gratitude, say
In
thank
the
you.
in the true Tom way.
Yeah,
However it comes out in each moment is the blessing.
yeah. And then there's your way, and there's each one. We each have our own way.
That's right.
To be grateful,
To
you
be
know.
grateful. Yeah.
Mhm.
So would you like to end our time with a blessing for everyone?
Thank you.
I would love that.
Yeah. So thank you. Oh, great spirit, creator, all it is, spirit in all things, source of life, ancestors, grandmothers, grandfathers, loved ones who've gone before us, each of us, each one of us, our entourage of guides, angels, and beings of light and love who attend us in this life, before, during, and after. Thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your love, your wisdom, your oversight and protection. Thank you for walking with us every step of the way. Amen. Aho.
Oh, mm, thank you, Tom.
Mhm. Thank you, Shaza.
What a beautiful blessing it is for us to reconnect
We
and
can,
be able to share on this subject.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I will send you the link and you can use it however you want, and I'll post it in a few weeks and it'll be out there so people can see you, and I'll send them to your
Awesome.
website.
Okay. Are we off now? We must be off now.
Not yet.
Oh,
One thing, one moment here.